prior to storing your tubers for the winter, you want to look over them very, very carefully, because as you can see right here, this looks like a really good tuber, but when you flip it over, it is not. This has been eaten or rotted away, and I will need to cut all of that out. I'll probably take that clear down to here and then clean out the center. Another example is right here. This is another one that I need to cut, and this is very, very wet, so I need to wait and maybe even cut this back even further, make sure that it's all cleaned out. But as far as this goes, this needs to be completely cleaned out. And you can see where this is black, and that's a sign that it's rotted. And if you don't get these out, and if you don't find them, and it could be a very little tuber, this just happens to be a big one. But if this happens and it's a very little one, then you may have the entire clump go bad because it will rot. See, you can tell here on this tuber here next to it, there was some dirt there, and that's all wet. This would probably have been the next tuber that would have rotted. So you need to get that all out of there. And then you need to clean down until you can find probably a more of a clear, like this color here, because if not, it's going to rot. And cut as much of that away as you can. See here, you can see where that's lighter. That's what you want to get it down to, because if not, it's going to, anything left there will rot the rest of the clump, and then you won't, the next time you look at it, there won't be anything left. So even though I need to clean that up just a little bit more, I'm not going to take the time right now to clean that up completely, but you need to clean that out. And then since you've made that cut, you now need to wait. Even though you thought you were maybe ready to store it, you're not, because one, this is still very, very moist up here. I need to cut some more of this off, cut that down a little bit, and open it up and let that air out too. I'll have to cut all the way around there and make sure that that's dry, because that's probably going straight down to that tuber. If I were to put my scissors straight through there, it would come out through there. So know that I need to clean this up a little bit more before I store it. Another thing, on this one is probably, and you can see where, I don't know, maybe you can't, this is a tuber that I had bought, and it's the mother tuber. So a lot of times the mother tubers rot, and you can't tell it, but if I feel this, and I don't know if you can see it squeezing there or not, these guys are firm, this one is not. So if I were to cut into this one, it now has that black, so you know that that's rotten. If I were to cut, say, this one off, you can see that's that clear, that's that healthy tuber there. So this tuber, again, this one's going to have to come clear off, probably all the way down here. And you can see it, and you'll know if you have rotten ones because they smell. They have a distinct odor to them, and there again, I'm going to have to clear that completely out, and that's normal. Sometimes the mother tubers, they don't last longer. A lot of people just automatically cut those off. If they're healthy, I leave them on. But yeah, I'll have to cut this a little bit more. I'll have to get down in there and clean all that out. But again, I won't take the time. But just you've also, instead of just looking at them, you also have to feel them. They need to be firm for them to be able to store healthy. Sometimes when you're doing this, when you're cutting this stuff off, you end up cutting a tuber. I always keep them all, just because I don't know. I've seen tubers that I didn't think that would form an eye, but they did. So these two were from other ones, not these particular. I tied around the neck very loosely. This is the tuber, the neck, and then this part up here is the crown. Now on this particular one, and you got to watch this if you do this like this, and some people do divide, and this is what it would look like if I were to divide now versus in the spring. But sometimes this will dry out, so I try to leave mine in big clumps, because I know they'll store better. But you can either tie the tags on there, or I've written on a permanent marker the name of the tuber so you can keep it separate. This particular one, it's kind of hard to see, but I can already see an eye right there that will likely form if this doesn't dry out over the winter. One last thing to look at, you don't have to do this, but I know I mentioned when I was digging that if you have a main tuber and you have other tubers that are coming off of it, that you can cut them off. Because these are so big, I probably won't cut these off because that's going to leave a big hole there, and that's, you know, more chance for it to get soft or something to happen to it. So I'll probably leave these intact. But sometimes if you have just little tubers coming off of a main tuber, off of this big one, then you could cut those off. And I mentioned that in my digging video. The most important thing before you store is to make sure that everything is dry. So if you've made any cut, then you need to make sure it's dry before you pack it. One thing too, once you look at it after a month, you need to look at them once a month. This isn't shriveled, but sometimes they will be. I don't currently have any that are shriveled up, but all you need to do is just spritz them with water is one way, and then kind of let them sit for a little bit until they've dried. That water will soak in there. Also, you can, when you pack, definitely don't put them in bags because that will make too much moisture. When you pack them, you can use a couple of different things. I've done it different ways. I've just packed them with nothing around them. I've put some soil in with it. Vermiculite is another thing that you can put in with them. I've seen where they've covered it completely. I've occasionally just put it in the bottom. This is something that you can moisten with your spray bottle if you do start to get a little bit of shriveling, instead of just, you know, putting it all over everything, just spritzing it with everything versus just spritzing the vermiculite. People have used paper shavings, and that would probably be a little bit easier to cover the entire thing. It doesn't matter, like I said, if you look at them once a month, you're going to kind of know whether or not they need moisture. You can even wet this down a little bit, or the vermiculite, or just spray them. But you'll know if you look at them once a month what you probably need to do. And then once you've decided whatever you're going to use to pack them, you just put them in some newspaper. I usually use like 2 sheets. You just, here, I'll put a little bit more of this in. You don't have to, like I said, you don't have to do this, but it is nice then if they, you know, you can just spray that little bit. You just wrap them up. You don't want to wrap them too tightly because there does need to be moisture into them throughout the month. You just wrap them like this. And I have a small box this time, so I don't know how many I can get in here. This is kind of what this looks like. This one, because it was kind of big, you may not want to put much more. You could put a few littler ones by wrapping them maybe in just a single piece of paper. This time I won't put anything in it. You could do this and just wrap it, but make sure that they're not completely covered. Like this, if I could get this in here, I don't think it's going to fit. But you put it in here and make sure that you can see this part, and then you can just cover it a little bit. But see, like here the tubers are showing because you don't want to completely tie it up. So it can't get any air. And then when you go to shut the box, you don't want, I'm going to take this one out because it is not going to fit in there because that one was too big. Just put it, kind of shut it like this, and then just let the air like this. You don't want to stack your boxes one on top of each other. You want to be able to have a little bit of air there. I opened this up and it really, you know, when the box is shut, it's kind of like this, but you can tell that there's air holes there. You don't want to put them on cement because that'll draw moisture. You want to keep them at 40 to 50 degrees. Sometimes I'll get a little from the dollar stores, a little thermometer, and put inside the box so you know what the temperature inside your boxes are. and this really just check them once a month. You know, you'll need to get them out and look all over them again, you know, take the paper, whatever. And that is one thing about the vermiculite, that it is a little bit tougher to get in there and look at every tuber. So you'll want to look at each one and, you know, look it over again. And this is one that I need to do a little bit more cutting. That's one I had available here. Look at each one of them, feel them, make sure that nothing's getting too soft. Look at them if they're too moist or getting wrinkly, and then spray them if you need to, or just spray the paper or the vermiculite. And then look at them again in another month.